Hi, everyone. Seeing everybody joining here. Welcome back or welcome for the first time to So You're Building an Early Career Program Session 2, setting yourself up for success in your first fall recruiting season. We're going to wait till a few more people file in before we get started. Carolyn and Shar from URX are here. They're going to be presenting some information on how to set yourself up for success in fall recruiting. And then we'll be moving on to a panel as well. So really excited to have everyone here. Anyone who's back from the first session, welcome back. I hope that you were able to join us. If not, we do have a recording to that session as well that you can share or watch after this. So really good to see everyone. We can start by introducing your name in the chat. So anyone who's logging on, you can share your name, where you're calling in from, where you work, and just give our panelists a little bit of an idea of who they're going to be addressing today. So nice to see you all. I'm excited to see where everyone's calling in from. All right, seeing some familiar faces in the chat. Great. And I'm going to pass it over to Carolyn, and we'll get started on some introductions.
And of course, I lose my Zoom toolbar right at the most critical moment. But hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We are super excited to be starting session 2 of So You're Building an Early Career Program with URX and RippleMatch. Really quickly, I want to walk you all through our lovely presenters and panelists today. So my name is Carolyn, and I am a university recruiter at Figma. I'll also be presenting with Shar, who everyone should know by now, but Shar is the Director of Early Talent here at BitGo. And then we also have really incredible panelists coming in from Axon and Chainalysis. We have Harriet Darkwa and Julie Montrose, and you'll get to hear directly from them closer to the end of today.
All right. And yes, so thank you for the introductions, Carolyn. Just so everyone knows, my name's Liz. I'm community manager here at RippleMatch, and I'll be sharing a little bit just about us. So for those of you who are not familiar, who maybe found this event through URX. So RippleMatch is an online platform that helps employers recruit their future. And the goal is to just make a more automatic process for Gen Z to find their careers, automatically matching them with jobs that are a good fit, saving them a lot of time and work and not hearing back from applications, and also helping companies build up diverse, high-performing teams starting at the entry level and going all the way up. So obviously, here to chat if you want to learn more. There's also a nice link in the deck for you at the end. I'll pass it back to Carolyn.
Awesome, thank you. And really quickly, for those of you who have never heard of URX before, we are a community of over 2,000 recruiters and developers of early career talent. And we bring together all sides of the early career recruiting industry and host events like this all year round. URX is also a part of OneReq, which is the community for recruiting from all aspects. So if you aren't already a member, please join us at onerec.com/join. To start, Shar and I will be going over a few key things that are important from session 1. And then we will also be going into our presentation, which is the focus of today's session, where we're going to be gearing up for the fall season. We're also going to end with a panel where we can hear from UR leads at Axon and Chainalysis about how they're starting to think about the fall and any advice that they have for all of you first timers that are building a program for the first time. Please note that this is super interactive, and so if you have any big questions, feel free to save them for the Q&A portion. If there's anything that you want me to clarify as Shar and I are presenting, you are welcome to drop that in the Zoom chat. Liz, if you don't mind monitoring the chat and stopping me if I don't catch it, that would be really awesome. Cool. Okay, first, let's quickly review what we covered in session 1 back in March, which was where we discussed the pillars of a strong early career program. It's super important to establish your why to ensure that your stakeholders can be on the same page as you. What we mean by that is, why are you building a program? Why are you hiring interns? Why are you focusing on hiring interns just for summer? There's a lot of things that are tied to that why piece that you really need to figure out ahead of going into your first program and your first season. From there, you can begin to build relationships with leaders, but don't forget your other cross-functional partners like finance for headcount, marketing to support your talent brand, HR for program support, and many more. We also shared the importance of using data to guide headcount planning. The main benefit of planning is to really support current and future business goals. And most companies typically target 15% of your org hires from early career pipelines. That said, it is really important to take management and mentorship resources into consideration before running through your numbers. Lastly, from session 1, think about what kinds of tools and resources that you and your team may need to be set up for success in the season. This can be a combination of free things like building your own tracking sheets and documents to using a paid tool like a CRM or an events management platform to manage your load in the fall. Like Liz mentioned, for more information about session 1, the recording is already available on the RSVP page for this event series, but we'll also be putting together a write-up that will live on the OneReq blog with the session recordings there, so stay tuned. Now, let's fast forward to where we are today. We are about to hit the summer. Some of you may have already welcomed your very first class of interns. Some of you are just preparing to start your very first fall recruiting season at your company where you're building a program for the first time. So assuming that we have the green light to launch the program, our focus shifts to preparing for the successful execution of your season. The majority of university and early career recruiting programs follow the academic calendar in a way that mirrors the seasons. We're going to focus on what you need to do this summer that will allow your program to hit the ground running once the critical fall recruiting season begins. Up first is identifying your recruitment goals, strategy, and execution. First, confirm and reconfirm headcount plans for 2023. Although we all want to start the conversation as early as possible, let's be real. Business needs and priorities shift, and headcount may not actually be finalized until later in the summer. Your company's fiscal calendar will also play a huge role in this, so prepare to be flexible. Next, you'll want to work with your finance team to review and finalize early career compensation. For interns, you'll need to set the hourly rate along with housing stipends, if applicable, for the following year. As for new grads, you'll need to determine base compensation, equity, sign-on bonuses, and relocation, if applicable. For anyone here that has already welcomed their first cohort of summer interns right now, and/or are planning to welcome fall interns in August or September, you'll also need to think about intern conversion and how that affects your goals and numbers. How many interns do you currently have? And how many are you able to convert either for a return internship or for a full-time offer? How many spots remain for external recruiting for the remainder of your season if X number of folks convert? These are some of the questions that may arise as you think about how to bake in conversion into your overall goals. Moving on to strategy and execution. Now's the time to begin identifying talent early and build a sourcing plan. Who are your ideal candidates for the different roles that you have? What schools and programs are you looking to engage with? And how do you plan on prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion within your hiring strategy? Furthermore, you'll want to use this time to check in with any external partners and communities that you plan on engaging with now through fall. Whether it's a student group at a specific school or a greater organization with a national presence, you'll want to have these conversations early to begin fostering an authentic relationship. Lastly, don't forget about your go live date, which is the target date that you want your roles to go public on your careers page and any other relevant job boards. For some, it can be helpful to identify this date first so that you can work backwards and plan out a realistic schedule and strategy leading up to your go live date. Now I'll pass things off to Shar, who will be taking over to discuss ops and processes.
Awesome. Thanks, Caro. So internal team ops and processes. So oftentimes I think we forget the smaller yet really critical details of a successful program, which are usually tied to operations. So here are some of the things that you should really be working on this summer to ensure that you and your team can operate in the most efficient way. Next slide, please. All right, that applicant tracking system. So once you've confirmed what roles you'll need to hire for, you'll also need to work on job descriptions and all the details. So this will then be uploaded into your ATS along with your interview workflow, your email templates, those offer approvals, and so much more. Likewise, you're going to want to start to really build your interview workflow for each role and break down how many stages and types of interviews you need. From there, you can think about how many interviewers you'll need and whether you need to ramp up more interviewers ahead of the season. Oftentimes, these are the details that hiring managers just forget. They forget how high volume our fall season can be. So it's really helpful to give them a heads up and ensure that there's a prioritization plan in place so that companies can continue to hire for industry level roles as well during our peak season. And those tools. So Carol briefly touched on this. Do not forget to build out any documentation and trackers along with setting up those tools that you'll need in the fall. As an example, here at BitGo, we are currently updating our company profile in RippleMatch and ensuring that all team members have a seat to access candidates. So now let's talk a little bit about metrics to track. This can definitely get a bit overwhelming given the vast amount of data points available within our space. Some of the things that you'll really want to track, so your must-haves is that offer acceptance rate, your offer decline rate, time to hire, any of those diversity related metrics, and of course, source of hire. And then on the additional, these were just some of the few that we thought of: progress to fill, hires from events, number of events that you're attending, that conversion eligibility rate, intern conversion rate, but there's so much more on here that we haven't listed. There are things like pass-through rates, and how many students are coming from each different school that you're visiting on campus, how many students are coming from HBCUs or HSIs, boot camps, a ton of data to track. One thing that I'll note here is a couple things. Tracking data can get very overwhelming. Make sure that you're really identifying which are the most important data to track. And then you can kind of grow that over time as you recruit season over season. But again, remember that more metrics really equates to more insights to really be able to grow and improve and iterate on your program. Next slide, please.
Awesome.
That's what I got. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Kara to talk a little bit about events and conferences.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shar. Actually, before I discuss events and conferences, I realized that one of my slides is not in order. So I did want to go back so that we're not missing this really important piece of information. So as part of your recruiting strategy and execution, something that we suggest you doing is hosting kickoff meetings in the summer with all of your relevant hiring leads and partners. So you'll want to think about all of these little nitty-gritty details that will really help you feel really confident ahead of the season. It comes down to things like the job details. How many openings do you have per type of role that you have? What are the target hire dates and start dates? Believe it or not, now every hiring manager realizes that it's most efficient for us to have similar onboarding dates. Sometimes they think that interns can start as soon as possible once they're hired. And so there is a lot of coaching that you need to do there to make sure that there is alignment. You also want to figure out what the job title is, what the leveling is, if your company isn't already familiar with what early career leveling is like. For the most part, it's typically intern as its own category, and then new grads typically come in at an L1 or L1 equivalent at your business. You'll also want to figure out job location. We recognize that every company is still trying to figure out what their permanent strategy will look like, but any clarity that you can offer to candidates as early as possible will be helpful. So determining whether you want a hybrid internship where you offer both fully remote and in-person internship experience, or sticking to fully in-person and making sure that there's parity across the board are things that you'll also be wanting to discuss with your hiring leads and champions as well. In terms of job specs, you also want to review the current team structure and org chart for the teams that are really eager to have interns. It's very easy to say that they want an intern, but once they get closer to the summer, you will almost always have one or two hiring managers that realize that they may have spoken way too soon, months ahead of time, and realize that they actually don't have enough manager or mentorship bandwidth to set an intern up for success. So really aligning on those expectations as early as possible will be critical. You also want to make sure that you really understand what an intern and new grad's responsibilities will look like. What are the absolute requirements of things that the interns must hit versus what are the nice to have things that you want an intern to accomplish? Those things will also adjust the way that you think about sourcing and recruiting as well. Last but not least, expectations and SLAs are also very important as well. Your meetings with your hiring managers don't just stop after your intake meeting. You want to continue to sync and touch base with these partners so that they feel included in the process and also feel motivated to help you win these candidates as well. The little bubble on the right says, help me help you. And that's a really common phrase that I like throwing around when I'm in my own intake meetings. I want our hiring managers, along with our champions, to recognize that this is not just a transactional agreement. We really want to be building a relationship that feels authentic and genuine to the point where they recognize that the recruiting team and people that are all involved in the early career program process are here to help you and your teams grow. All right, moving forward back to events and conferences. So we want to talk about what this looks like pre-season and then also during your season, and then making sure that you think about how to build a schedule that really works for you. So up first are some suggestions on internal things that you could be doing. Like I just mentioned, you can do an intake meeting. We also like calling it an internal roadshow here at URX, where you get to just meet with all people within the business to give them visibility into your upcoming plans for early career recruiting. More oftentimes than not, there are a lot of people that are curious about early career recruiting, but just didn't really know how to reach out to the right person, or they don't really know what their involvement could be in either an interviewer or even a volunteer capacity at events. So we find that doing an internal roadshow is definitely helpful ahead of your fall season. Another way to boost visibility, if a roadshow is something that you may not have the bandwidth for during this time, is just presenting at a company all hands and just giving high-level overview of what your plans are in the fall, just so that the business recognizes that there's a lot of things happening on the recruiting front. Another thing you could be doing during this time is meeting with C-suite or senior level executives, again, just to give your program visibility and also give them visibility into your thought process for how you're approaching the fall season. As for external programming, this is more tied towards recruiting. We've seen some of our partners do recruiting open houses where you just have recruiter Q&As, or maybe you have senior leadership come do a really quick virtual fireside chat. Anything that kind of opens the doors for prospective candidates to just get them excited even before roles open are kind of low lift programming opportunities for you to consider pending bandwidth. You could also consider doing an interview prep series to make sure that your prospective candidates feel really confident going into the fall season, not only to engage with your company, but with other employers as well. Another low lift option is an intern panel. And what this means is you can put together a panel of maybe early career people at your company that have been interns in the past relatively recently, and they can kind of share their insights on what it was like transitioning from being an intern to a new grad, any general tips they have for the intern or the early career job hunt, things that are just more for talent brand as opposed to things exclusive to your company, since you may not already have an intern program fully fleshed out. For the fall, there are so many things that you'll want to be thinking about. In the summer, there's already a number of events that are on the calendar. For any of you that are a portfolio company for Greylock, for example, the Greylock Tech Fair happens every July, and it's a great opportunity for you to get ahead of the season and start to engage with prospective candidates. Talent Board is also a great resource where you can do some employer branding and do career prep series like a resume review. You can invite one of your designers to talk about how to put together a really good portfolio for design internships and new grad roles and anything like that. We're happy to share more resources about Talent Board's career prep series after the session. There's also the Contrary Startup Fair, which is typically open to private companies that haven't gone public yet. The date has not been announced for that, but if you Google it, there will be more information shared soon. More importantly, however, is the fall. There's a lot of big events that are happening, and this is just a small number of some of the things that we've seen URX community members go to in the past. August 11th through 12th is the Rewriting the Code Career Summit, which is fully virtual and a really great way to engage with women that are really interested in pursuing technical opportunities at your companies. There's also the Tapia conference that I believe is in person. AUCC Career Fair is also in person. Grace Hopper is hybrid, and SHIP will also be in person. Afrotech has a number of different activations that are either virtual and in person, and more information can be found about those opportunities on their respective websites. But these are some really popular opportunities to sort of get your company in the eyes of the talent that you want for the following year. To end, we just want to remind everyone that Rome wasn't built overnight. Just understand that this is your first season and you will be doing a great job preparing. Yes, there will be things that you may miss or will be out of your control, but make sure to take note of that and apply the learnings to your program as it grows and develops. I know that this was just a high-level overview of what to be thinking about this summer, but we truly hope that this overview was helpful. And now I'd love to invite Liz to kick off the panelist Q&A with Harriet and Julie, who will be sharing their insights as well. I think we're having some audio issues. Liz,
Yeah,
you're good to go?
sorry about
Awesome.
that. I'm all good to go. Welcome everybody. So good to see you all again. See lots of familiar faces here. As you may know, my name's Liz. I'm community manager here at RippleMatch. Joining me today, we have Julie Montrose from Chainalysis and Harriet Darkwa, who will be on our panel. We're going to be talking a lot about how all of you who have done such a good job starting your early career programs, really setting the foundation for a strong program, how you can carry that into active fall recruitment season. So, and Carolyn, you can also stop sharing your screen if you would like. So anyway, just kicking off here, I'm sure everyone wants to get to know our panelists first, so I'll have them introduce themselves, passing it off to Julie first.
Great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to this group. My name is Julie Montrose, and I lead university recruiting at Chainalysis. For those of you not familiar, Chainalysis is a blockchain analytics company. And essentially what we do is we build trust in blockchains. That's our tagline. And we help companies fight crime with cryptocurrency transactions. So those are like countries that are trying to evade sanctions, ransomware, terrorist financing. So I'm really proud to work at such a mission-driven company to help get crypto on the mainstream in the future. So with that, I'll pass it over to Harriet.
Thanks, Julie. My name is Harriet Darkwa, and I'm the head of university relations and inclusive of talent management at Axon. So Axon, I'm sure many of you may or may have not heard of Axon. Axon, like Chainalysis, is a mission-driven company. It is a tech company focused on, really, our tagline is obsolete the bullet. So we have non-lethal weaponry and really focus on how do we provide safety and without the bullet. So excited to be here. I've been in early career for almost 20 years. So excited to jump right in there and answer any questions anyone has.
Awesome. Thank you both. And as you can see, we do have some real experts here. So really excited to get started with a few questions for them. So to start, I'm sure everyone in the audience wants to know how you both started your early career programs. I know you've both had a lot of experience in this area. So to begin, if we could share how your company and team felt the need for an early career program and how you first started the project. I'll pass it to Julie first and then Harriet.
Sure, thanks, Liz. So I joined Chainalysis actually fairly recently. It's been about 7 or 8 months since I joined last November. And Chainalysis was scaling very quickly. So what, like, to give you a little flavor, I think I was employee number 400 something, and now we're close to the 800 mark just in the 7 or 8 months that I've been at the company. And last summer, leadership really wanted to include early talent as part of their growth and scaling strategy. And that's when they set out on the early career manager search. And then after some interviews, meeting the team and building out a strategy for them, they extended an offer to me, and I was super excited to accept and build their first early careers program.
Great. Thanks, Julie. Harriet?
Yeah, so somewhat similar. You know, Axon has had early career for some time, but the business really wanted to create a strategy around it, not just, you know, just to have it. And so I joined the organization a little over a year ago, almost a year and a half ago, to really build what we like is a strategic effort around early career so that it can truly be the benchmark, you know, or the bench to the organization. And we can really be thoughtful about early career. So it's really taking it from just having it to making it strategic and a part of the business's people strategy.
Great. Thank you both for sharing. So for our next question, something that's often overlooked or underestimated when building a new career program is all of the work tied to recruiting operations. I know you probably are both very familiar with this. So from interview training to ensuring that you have all the right recruiting tools, what would you say some of the ops related logistics that are top of mind for you at this time? So as you're heading into the fall, what are some logistics that you're currently managing? I'll post that question in the chat, and Harriet, you can take it away first.
Yeah, I think the one that really just is top of mind for me is really that interviewer training and manager training. I think, you know, that's the key ops functions that we kind of underplay, and we say, oh, you know, it's not a big deal. It is, right? We definitely know in this environment where the interview process is a huge part of, you know, the offer acceptance rate. We really need to prep our managers to interview well and to interview with speed. So that's a big thing for me. My mantra in my business and my team will say, I probably say it a ton, is how do we cut the fat on this, right? How do we move faster, but keep what's important still there and remove the fluff, right? Where it's not impactful, it takes a lot of time. And so that's top of mind. How do I trim this, you know, year over year to the most critical part of the interview process? And then how do I get our managers to be the true advocate for us, right? Everything from how they, you know, engage the candidate to how quickly they move and response rate and thinking outside of the box, right? That's a big thing for me, is that we need to kind of get out of our own way as a business and not focus on this is always how we've done it, but what do we need right now to be effective and make sure we're bringing great and long lasting talent. So that's probably the biggest thing that's on top of my mind right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Harriet. Go ahead, Julie.
Sure. So I think like Carolyn and Shar brought up so many good points during their introduction earlier, from creating a compensation structure to intern benefits, team matching, partnering with stakeholders. So all of that is super useful. I think top of mind for me is reviewing kind of what went well from last season and what didn't go so well, and creating a strategy and like continuing to iterate to create the process better. So one of the things, back to interviews, because that's typically a huge bottleneck for me when it comes to recruiting, is just creating little teams of champions in the business that can help you. So this is like something that I've done before in previous companies, and something that I'm going to launch again this year is, for example, if you have your engineering team that's looking for X amount of interns, how many interviewers do we need to make that interview cycle successful, right? So that could be a group of maybe 4 interview champions that are going to be partnering with you on all of the fall interviews that are taking place. And then making sure that you're blocking their time off in advance, so they're not booking anything else and they're just focused on that. And then also having interviewers on the bench, right? So if somebody cancels last minute, your super day doesn't fall apart, because you've got your little circle of champions that are willing to step in. And not only for interviews, but for events as well. That's another place. Like, I'm a team of 1. So I'm kind of like managing a lot on my own. So I've, like anything that I do, I try to like see how I can partner with others to make this job easier or, come off like very smooth. So also creating a group of champions for events. So these are like your subject matter experts that'll kind of help you through the recruiting season. So when you need a panelist or when you need a speaker, even if they're not that person, they know that part of their responsibility is to help you find speakers for that event. So just like having more people on your side and building a team around you, even if you're a team of one.
And if I could just add to what Julie said, I think you said something so critical. And for those who this is your first time, really creating an early career function, having champions is the game changer, right? You need to not just have executive level buy-in, right? The top totally agree with you. They're all in and they get it and they want you to run, and you start running. Your innate thing is to just run. And you forget all the people in the middle who actually have to make it happen. And if they don't buy into this, right, you're going nowhere. You're absolutely going nowhere. It doesn't matter if the CEO, the CFO, any of the C-suite support you if that middle group doesn't buy into it and understand it. So I'll tell you, one of the critical aspects of this process and setting this up even for the fall is having those meetings within Carolyn shared with your stakeholders who are not just the C team. So those people managers that you're going to be working with, their leaders, because interview days are a tremendous amount of work, and getting their buy-in, meeting with them, educating them on what your expectations are, giving them a timeline because they're very busy, and also rewarding them, right? Like, hey, we're going to have a super day. Offer them lunch, right? Bring in, Uber Eats, give them a, link to that so that they will be on your side. But I'll tell you that that's one of those ops things that, again, can be so totally underestimated, but will make or break your experience.
Totally agree with all of that, both Harriet and Julie. I actually used to be a campus recruiter as well. And I think that having a super day or having a career fair, like you need people on the ground who are going to go to bat for you and who are going to fill in, especially if you're a team of one. So totally love the idea of the team of champions. And I'm definitely going to be reusing that quote at some point. So for our next question, what are your current plans for the fall recruiting events? Are you doing hybrid, in-person, remote, or fully in person? And if you're doing anything on campus specifically, how did you identify and decide which schools to go to? I'm going to post this question in the chat, and Julie, you can go ahead and speak first.
Sure. Thanks so much, Liz. So I think my plans right now is to mostly remain virtual just because of like being a team of one. It's hard to be everywhere at the same time. So I think I can make the most impact by just using a virtual strategy on campus rather than going on site. And I think second, I'm really like using the summer as an opportunity to also have students come to us. So like, luckily our office is in New York, and New York has so many companies and so many summer interns there right now. I'm working with different clubs to have treks come to our office. And I found that having a trek come to your office costs a lot less than maybe like sponsoring a hackathon or attending a career fair, because you could probably, have a budget of $500 and have an amazing event by just using your space. And then we are going to be attending some conferences. So I think Grace Hopper is on the list, which is super exciting. And we're going to be there in person this year. So I haven't been to Grace Hopper in a couple of years, so I'm super excited to be able to go back and see students live. And then also I think probably hosting some pipeline programs as well. One thing that I found at Chainalysis is like, when I first joined, I wanted to like find out what my company does really well and use it to my advantage to recruit. So because we have all these kind of complicated investigation tools and products that require a lot of training to be able to use them successfully, we have a pretty large training team that does a lot of trainings on just even fundamentals of blockchain and cryptocurrency. So I actually launched a diversity program for like underrepresented students to get certified in like blockchain and crypto fundamentals. And through that channel, some of the students that actually had participate, I just kind of like hit gold because there was like a lot of blockchain presidents in the club and like other leaders on campus. So through building those relationships, I was able to already kind of plan 4 to 5 events for underrepresented students heading into the fall, even at this early stage. So that's like a huge tip. Find out where your company does really well and see how you can leverage that to your benefit.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Harriet, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's we are going to probably do hybrid, and majority they will be probably virtual events at this time with a couple in person. What we're doing differently, or I think what has worked for us, is really the one-to-one connection. So we're in an industry that is not known, has a lot of presumptions and perceptions. So having those really one-to-one connections with candidates, utilizing our internal conversion. I'm a big conversion advocate. I think it's the low-hanging fruit. It's where people have buy-in, they know who you are, they bought into you. So we're really pushing, I'm really pushing hard on our business to execute on conversions successfully. And we're also having our interns, have an event where they invite their friends and people just like them, right? And others that we think we can find some great value in and would find great value in us. So we're utilizing that intern community really strongly. And then having very strategic relationships. I've told my team one of the big things for me is intentional partnerships. So it's just not going to all these events just to go. It's great for branding, but we don't have a ton of people, nor do we have a ton of money to go to everything. So really being intentional. Why am I going here? What do we want to get out of here? And most importantly, what relationship can we form out on this campus, right? Or within this club? What can we practically do to be like, have a really thoughtful relationship partnership here? So we are allowing ourselves to have that flexibility to go virtual or in person, depending on where that intentional relationship leads us.
Thank you, Harriet. And yeah, +1 to those forming of the relationships. That's how you're going to get candidates. So definitely super important there. So we have 2 more questions left in this round, and then we'll move into some Q&A with our audience today. So for both Julie and Harriet, what were some challenges that you experienced while building your program strategy and recruiting for the first round of this program? What's something you know now that you wish you knew then? So if you're going into your fall recruitment season for the first time, what's something that you wish you knew then? We'll start off with Harriet.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I knew this, but I think I mistakenly forgot it, and that happens, even if you're already experienced doing it, is how important that buy-in is at the ground level, right? So we, kick this off with so much excitement. Yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to, do all these fantastic things, and forgetting that the information doesn't always carry through all the way down. You've had all your C-suite conversations, they're bought in, everything's checked off. And you just kind of sometimes assume, especially when you have a smaller team, right? At the time it was a team of 1.5, right? You tend to just want to go. And taking that second to slow down and get that buy-in is what I wish I had remembered this time last year. Because when it gets to those, interview days, we hire a lot of software folks, so we do, we do huge interview days, right? And getting them all in, and we have rotational programs and things like that. You need practical people to make this happen. And so meeting with them, getting their buy-in, answering their questions, right? Just taking the time to explain everything to them and getting them on board would have probably cut a lot of the time that we had to go back and say, wait, no, we told boss manager so-and-so, and we assume he told you. Nope, he didn't tell me. Okay, now we have to go through this again. So I would say doing all that stuff up front. You may miss, it may take you an extra minute, but it would save you a ton of minutes, on the back end. I think that's something I wish we had slowed down a little bit to do, to make sure that we had executed flawlessly. And I would say that really making sure that you, again, less may be more, especially in this very, in this change of seasons in talent acquisition and talent management, honestly, that everyone is being kind of, attacked with so many events and so many things, so many options, and every company is an option now, that really just trying to go out to the masses, you kind of overwork yourself, and versus really saying back, like, okay, what is that employee profile or profiles that I'm looking for? Where can I find that? Where can I develop those key relationships? And that will yield a funnel, and it won't come away right away, right? You're going to have to put some sweat equity, but where am I going to get the most bang for my buck? Again, instead of kind of spreading yourself thin across so many different, avenues.
Awesome. Thanks, Harriet. Julie, want to add on to that?
Sure. I like agree with all the points that Harriet just made. Like leadership buy-in is so important. I remember when I first joined Chainalysis, like some leaders would be like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know if I want an intern program because, when I worked at this company XYZ, like I never even got to select my intern. Somebody was just throwing at me, never worked out. So really kind of finding out like what the challenges were and like, what the naysayers are saying and how you can be because at the end of the day, we're here to solve problems, right? So what's the problem and like, how can we be the person that helps them solve? So that's one thing. I'd say the other thing is just like knowing what your bandwidth is and getting people on board with you as early as possible, other stakeholders and other collaborators in the business, because you can't do it alone. And then things like, I need to tell myself this all the time, like, don't be so hard on yourself. We're just people at the end of the day and it's a job. Like we are all in this field because like we want to help students and like all we can do is do the best that we can. But on that other hand, track all your accomplishments, right? Because it's so easy to forget like all the wonderful things you may have done. So like keep a running list. So if you ever kind of like feel down or feel like, you're failing at something, like you can always refer to that and feel awesome. And then also share with your manager during performance reviews.
Amazing. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, I used to have a manager that would tell me to screenshot everything good that I accomplished and put it in a folder on my desktop. So if anyone wants to take that approach, highly recommend it and look through it whenever something goes wrong. Totally works well. So thank you for that, Julie. We have one more question left in this round. So for someone building out a new early career program, what is one final piece of takeaway advice for feeling ready this fall? We'll start with Julie and then go to Harriet.
What's one piece? Yeah. So that's a really good question. So I think like just making sure that you're toolkitting everything. Like I created myself like one document of everything, like all the decks that I prepared, like a time order of when all events are happening, all the stakeholders that are involved. So if I ever need to refer to something, I go back to that one document and that links to everything else. And I found that that's made my life so much more manageable because I'm not the world's most organized person. So I highly recommend for anyone that's putting this together, and it makes you look like put together. So if your leadership ever asks or your manager's like, hey, how are you tracking to things? Like easy, you pull up a doc and it makes you look like you've got everything together.
Awesome. Yeah, doc is always your friend.
Totally agree with you, with Julie. Make sure that you're putting those frameworks down for yourself and so that you can build upon it. But I would also add a couple of things is make sure you're constantly having that roadshow, right? Communicate. I think sometimes, especially as early career leaders, we're so passionate about what we do and we can just get really into it, right? And forget to tell everyone those great stories or bring people with you. Communicate, and not only to your specific leader or to within, especially if you're within the HR organization, not just within HR, like have a relationship and partnership with the business, right? Understand the business, understand their needs, not their needs communicated by HR, but their needs specifically, like, really be a business partner. As you do that, you'll really learn like, oh gosh, I thought I'm all the way over here. Like I'm all the way left and they are all the way right. Because at the end, we are supporting a business, and the closer we are to their needs and desires, right? And the closer we are to a business partner, the better program that we have, right? We won't waste a lot of time doing things that we just think are the right things versus what actually ties all in back into the business. Because ultimately that's what's going to count for the organization. So I would say really make sure that you're connecting with them. If you're supporting a division, that C team member on a monthly or quarterly basis at the very least, your HR business partners. Like, make sure you have a really good brand that you are a business partner on top of an early career leader.
Thank you, Harriet. All right, so now that we've gone through all of our panelists' pre-prepared questions, we're going to get into some Q&A with the audience. So I just pulled a Carolyn and lost my toolbar, so just give me 1 second.
No worries, Liz. I can actually read out the first question from Kathy.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We struggle with buy-in each year, getting senior leadership to fully support the budget needs for internship. We struggle with buy-in each year, getting senior leadership to fully support the budget needs for internships. By the time the season draws closer, they reallocate funds. Any tips on reinforcing that value prop to management?
I think the first thing you need to do is you need to have a champion, right? You need someone who's going to speak up for you when you're not in the room. And that has to be someone who's impactful. And instead of trying to get a cut across all leaders, you need 1, 2 who can really stand out for you. And better if they're in the business than just in HR, right? So, because every year something's going to change, right? There's going to be some type of money that's going to be needed for something else. And unfortunately, sometimes we're one of the groups that get cut until the business understands and buys into early career. So based on the question, it sounds like, the organization is probably not fully bought in to early career as a people strategy. So number one, get that champion, help them understand that this is not just a nice thing to do. I tell my business leaders all the time, I'm not here to do nice things. Like, I don't get paid for that. That's not what this is about. This is not about bringing in your best friends, brothers, sisters, cousins, neighbor. This is a business strategy, and we're here to support the business. So having 10 to 15% is of your people as early career folks builds a bench, which then converts into middle management, which then converts into your senior leader. So helping them see that business strategy, and it doesn't have to start at 10. I told business leader the other day, I don't even need, you just give me 2%. Just let's start with 2. Let's just get you started, right? And let them see the buy-in, right? So you're gonna constantly be doing this roadshow. You're gonna constantly be talking. You're gonna feel like a broken record because your business just doesn't get it yet, but they will. And don't compare yourself to the Morgan Stanleys of the world and the JPs, right? These companies who've had early career strategies for 50 years. I've worked at big brand companies where, this is just normal. And then I've worked for startups. It's like, I have a problem bringing an intern, right? And I've seen both dynamics. And if you lean on that first, you get really discouraged. But the excitement of the latter is that you can help them get there. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of flexibility, right? Today you may have 10% of the people strategy. Tomorrow you may only have 5. But being okay with that, and then also constantly having that roadshow, constantly talking to the leaders, constantly selling, and get that champion, get someone by your side that's in the business that will support you when you're not there.
So I'll also add to that, Harriet, all really, really good points, is really kind of tying it to outcomes. When you're talking to leadership, like, what kind of data can you produce for them to get them on your side? So are there former interns in your company that are now leaders of the business, right? Like, how do you make that connection? Hey, they started here as an intern and here's where they are now. This is why this program is valuable. Without them, we couldn't have reached XYZ sales goal. Or is your intern program a channel for underrepresented talent that's coming into the business? Like, you can, find out like what's kind of the hook of your program and why it's really important, and try to like use that kind of segue to sell it to leadership. So I think that could be another good point.
Great. Thank you, Julie. We have another question up in the chat here. So this is from Anonymous. When budgets are restrictive, how can we display benefits of the program to internal leaders as well as interns we are aiming to recruit? It's a good question.
So I'll take a stab at it. When you say, I think maybe we need some clarity a little bit, but when you say budgets are limited, how do you sell the program to internal leaders? and to the external candidates. Well, selling it to internal leaders is great because they're happy when it's not an expensive program, right? So really utilizing grassroots effort. How are you going to create this program without breaking the bank? And it just takes extra creativity from you. Like I said, it's not always going to large conferences, right? That's going to get you great candidates. It's really what can you create on a shoestring budget, right? Where are you going to network? How are you going to use kind of some sweat equity to get that to get what you need? To the external candidates, to the interns themselves, I tell you, it's not an easy pill because it's so competitive right now, right? But one of the things I've found is really now, even interns are not about just the salary and the benefits because everybody's on the equal playing field like never before, right? Companies are far more equal. Startups to big companies are financially almost on the same, playing field. Even with, some swag is not impressive anymore. Free lunches is not impressive anymore. But so what you can do is demonstrate your care and the mission and value that your business offers. So what does your company offer that other companies just don't? So if it's, benefits, summer Fridays, or if it's the ability to connect with top leaders, or if it's honestly just your care. Like I think candidates are so excited when HR folks or their early career leaders are involved, interested in them, meeting with them, calling them. I actually put it on our early career leaders calendars. Reminder, call your intern today. Reminder on their calendars, because I know they're going to forget. They're busy. So call your intern today, now, right? And they're just flashes on their Outlook, because that call makes a difference, right? Having your senior manager, your director, or VP call you and say, hey, how's your week going? Makes a difference in selling your role.
Thanks, Harriet. Julie, anything you want to add?
Sure. Just on those lines, like learn how to be scrappy. I think all of us felt this during the beginning of COVID, where like either we had programs that were just completely canceled, or we had to find creative ways to cut the budget, pull housing stipends, shorten programs, get rid of events that we had planned to save money. So just learn, how to be creative. So maybe that's like, you have a subject matter expert within the business that can host a workshop that's going to cost you nothing, right? Because that person's already working at the company. Maybe they're a strength finders coach, or maybe they're a money 101 expert, right? Or even hosting events like a Shark Tank competition, right? That's just, it's going to cost you time to set that up and create that program, but it may not really cost you much in terms of like spending actual cash. So just learning how to be super scrappy. And like, keep a list of running ideas always, because you never know when your budget's going to get slashed. I'm actually going through something similar now where like, I had a certain budget and now I don't have that much money to spend anymore. So I have to be creative with the events that we're hosting, for interns and for recruiting. So just try to think out of the box as much as you can, do a lot of Googling. There's a lot of good ideas online too. Or join URX. And post a question. They're always so helpful. So
Absolutely, Julie. And yeah, I think what both of you, Harriet and Julie, have really touched on is that there's always kind of a continuous uncertainty in the market. There's economic changes we have to deal with. And I think being scrappy and being able to respond to those changes is such a huge part of being an early career recruiter. So with that being said, we have about 5 minutes left. I'm going to throw it back to Harriet and Julie for one last question. With there being uncertainty in the market continuously, what are some ways that you are future-proofing your early career programs? Whoever wants to take it away first.
For us, and I will sound like a broken record, is focus on those intern conversions. Has always been my go-to, and I think that's the most successful. I was an intern for years, so I understand it from the perspective of having been an intern, and I worked for my company for 10 years because I just felt they invested and changed my life and giving me exposure, confirming that HR is really what I wanted to do, that I just wanted to work so much harder, so much harder for them. So I truly believe in this conversion. So I'm big on my team looking at interns not in with the lens of an internship, but with the lens of the long term, that this is potentially the next rotation, person, our entry level talent pool, looking at it, that they're the next leader of our business. So really heighten the intern experience. That's a big one for me. It's really focusing on having a solid intern program. And I think the rest will play out. Lastly, I think it's really making sure the business buys into what we're doing. Again, this is not just for niceties. And I think the more as early career or leaders, we can demonstrate that this is not fluff work. This is a strategy. This is a money maker, right? This is what we do to help the business make money. And helping your organization, the organization understand that this is not a summer job at X, shop. This is life-changing for someone, right? This financially changes in someone's life, but also exposes us to talent we wouldn't get any other place, right? We're getting diverse talent from it, right? We're able to get, we can be a bit more risky with an intern, right? Than in a co-op that we couldn't be with maybe a direct hire because we're not sure. And we don't want to, bet our full-time role on this. And so we're really going to continue to push that mantra of internship, co-ops, right? To make sure we build that strength. And I think it'll eventually build the confidence that probably a lot of our colleagues on this line are looking for, right? Is through that internship and co-op program.
Mm-hmm. And right now, I mean, like, obviously there's a downturn in the market. There's a lot of external factors that we have no control over. A lot of times when this happens, early careers takes the brunt of that hit. So just, it's important to remember, like, no matter how good you are, like sometimes, you could lose a job out of this. So one thing that I think is helpful is just really making yourself visible in all the work that you're doing. So one way that I like to do this is to recognize others that help the program. So if you've got any sort of like recognition programs internally, use them, shout those people out that helped you, right? Make them feel good. This way, the intern program is always like top of mind for people and they see it's really super visible. And then let me try to think what else. Yeah. So I think just like really getting on your people on your side and just seeing the impact that you make will kind of hopefully, keep on yourself in longevity with your company.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, Harriet. Thank you both again for being on the panel today. I think this was very informational for all of us, myself included. And thanks again also to Carolyn and Shar and URX for giving us this platform for this series. So I wanted to just quickly share that we will be posting this recording to the RSVP page, and both recordings from So You're Building an Early Career to the URX website. We'll also have a takeaways article, some more goodies for you on their site. So please take a look there. And wanted to say thank you all for attending and really hope to see you at more events.
Thank you all so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.